Hi, my name is AJ, and today I'm going to show you how to replace the screen on a Samsung Galaxy S10 Plus. As you can see here, my screen is pretty torn up. I dropped it flat on the concrete the other day, and I need to get it replaced before the weekend's up. Now, most of the videos that I've seen online, they're showing you how to replace the entire frame. I, however, do not have the entire frame. I only have just the LCD panel itself. So let's go ahead and get started with replacing the screen on the Samsung S10 Plus. In order to remove the screen, we're going to need a hot air gun, a bit set, some rubbing alcohol, obviously the replacement screen and the phone that needs the screen replaced, a plastic pry bar. We're going to need a SIM card tray removal tool, a razor blade, various metal pry bars. We're going to need iFixit picks, and lastly some Tessa tape. This is everything that you're going to need to replace the screen on a Samsung S10 Plus. Okay, now the first thing that we're going to do is take the phone and turn it off if possible. If you don't know the person's password, you won't be able to do this, but I always like to turn my devices off when I am working on them. In order to get into the phone, we first have to remove this back glass, and this is not the easiest task. This is actually going to be the hardest thing you're going to do this entire video. What I'm going to use is just use my heat gun to remove this glass. Now, you're going to have to be very careful with this glass because it can break quite easily. And so the key here is just to use a lot of heat. Go ahead, heat it up. Don't worry, you're not going to bust anything. So let's go ahead and get started with heating this up. The adhesive on this phone is around the camera, around the edges obviously, and then around here. We're going to start by taking the razor blade and pushing it between the glass and the frame. And then once we get in there, we're going to rotate the blade until we are facing up. And then we're going to press the blade up under that glass. Now, you don't want the tip of the blade running along the inside of here because you'll mess up the coloration on the back of this. So we're going to have the blade about here, and we're just going to take it, and you want to keep the blade at an angle like this. You don't want to run it down this way. You want to keep it at a nice angle, and we're just going to run the blade down and start cutting away that glue. Seriously, heat up this area. And now that we have it pretty warm, we're going to take the blade, we're going to go down, and then rotate it, and then rotate it underneath there. Awesome. Now be careful with the razor blade how it is. If you were to lay this phone flat, it would press up on that glass and you have the potential of breaking it. You have to be very careful this entire time to make sure that you don't crack this glass. Remember, the key ingredient here is heat. Okay, now that we've run the razor blade down most of the side, we're going to take one of our iFixit picks and we're going to slide it in there. Oh, that's hot. Notice here how my razor blade got too deep under the glass, and you can see the tip scraping on the back side of the glass. I quickly retracted the razor blade as to keep from damaging the coloration that is on the back of the glass. Remember guys, heat is your best friend here. Now that we've run the perimeter of the frame with the razor blade, we're going to heat up the entire back glass and then do the same thing, but this time using the pick. Okay, now we have the entire back off the phone, except for around the cameras. So we're gonna be gentle, we're gonna heat up that camera area. There we go. Now that we have the back off, we can clear out all unnecessary items and we can get to work on the phone. We're just going to simply unscrew all of these screws. From here, we can just remove these plastic pieces that are on top of the frame. Alright, and here is our phone. First thing we're going to do is disconnect the battery. Anytime we're working around electronics, the first and foremost rule is disconnect power. Now we technically don't have to take the circuit board out, but considering it's only a couple screws, let's just go ahead and do our due diligence and take it out so that just in case we happen to mess something up, we're not breaking our $1,000 phone here. So let's go ahead and we're going to disconnect the audio jack. We're going to disconnect the screen here. We've already undone our battery. We're going to take out the camera. Now we need to remove the SIM card tray. This is very important. The circuit board will not come out if you don't remove the SIM card. Okay? With the SIM card removed, we can now start from this side and pick up on the circuit board. And the whole thing will just come out. There we go. Okay, now we need to go ahead and remove the battery. In order to remove the battery, we're going to need some alcohol. Oh wait, wrong one. No, not this one. Yeah, alcohol, here we go. And we're just going to take some of that and we're going to put some around the edges of this battery. And we're just kind of and then we're going to take our pry tool and we're just going to gently work up that battery. Now if you plan on keeping this battery in here, just be a little bit gentle with it. It comes up very easily, as you can see. And just like that, we have our battery removed. Now I'm gonna go ahead and replace my battery. Since we're already in here, I figure why not go ahead and put a new one in. Now this is a fun part. There's nothing left in here to potentially damage when we remove the screen. We've only got a very few bare bones components in here. What we're gonna do is we're gonna heat this screen up and we're just gonna cut it off. I'm gonna do the same thing. I'm gonna try to run my razor blade along all the edges. Just be careful of the speaker. Try not to damage the speaker. Okay, once we run our blade around, we can literally come from the back of the phone and push the screen out. Alright, there we go. Now before we put our new screen in, we're going to want to clean off this old adhesive off the frame. And so you can take your razor blade and scrape it off. Heating it up helps get it off really well. We're just going to go around this entire frame. We want to make sure that there are no pieces of adhesive or glass left inside the frame. We want to make sure that we do a very good job of cleaning up this frame because we want our new screen to sit perfectly flush up against that frame. Alright, now that our frame is cleaned up, we can begin to put the new screen on. Alright, now let's get started by putting down the adhesive for the new screen. If you buy a new screen, make sure that it comes with adhesive because you don't want to get a screen and not have the adhesive for it. Now, the manufacturers don't always do the best job of cutting this adhesive. As you can see here, if I put this on here, it's going to cover my speaker grill. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this into two pieces. Let's see. Make sure that there is no adhesive sticking out of these corners because you want that screen to sit down. Alright, everything looks good here. Sometimes when you buy some of the cheaper screens, they don't include sticky adhesive here, and I would much rather have adhesive sort of in these areas than just the edges. So try to find a reputable source for these parts so that issue does not happen. We are now ready to install this onto the phone. A very key thing to remember is you must get this connector through this hole. I put one of these screens on before and adhered it and forgot to stick that through the hole. Well, actually I did put it through the hole, but when I was fussing around with it, it came out and I didn't see it, and I adhered the screen down and I was not able to get this through without breaking the screen. So the very first thing that we're gonna do is stick that, I'm gonna bend this so that kind of sticks up like that, and then I'm going to stick that through its hole, and then we're gonna go through and align. I'm going to, whoops, see that bottom came out again, so be very careful of that. I'm going to align the top, and make sure that you take your time with this, because if you don't align this, you're not gonna be able to get it up really to adjust it. And then once you have it aligned properly, just go ahead and press it on. Now you do have a little bit of wiggle room. If you don't put this on perfectly centered, you can heat it up and shift it around before you go around the edges and really adhere it down like I'm doing right now. So you got a tiny bit of wiggle room, so just make sure that you get it aligned up properly before you get to pressing this down on all the way. Okay, our screen is now on. I'm gonna leave this film on to protect it. Make sure that there's no glass from the previous screen left on your counter surface. If you have little bits of glass left and you put your phone down here and start working on it and screwing, you can scratch your brand new screen, so we don't wanna do that. Make sure that your camera windows are clean. You don't wanna put this phone together and realize that you forgot to clean that. So, and while we're at it, I'm actually going to go ahead and clean off some of this adhesive that was left over from the back glass. Just clean up these edges a little bit. Alrighty, now we can start popping pieces back in this phone. I have a new battery here, and so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some of my sticky tape. Alrighty, and I'm actually going to wait to put our battery in. So let's go ahead and we're going to fold up our little connector here on the audio jack, and we're gonna seat our USB-C inside where it belongs, and then we're just gonna pop our motherboard down in there. Alrighty, work up to the top, being careful not to touch those cameras like I probably just did. Alrighty, next we have our front cameras. Be careful not to touch those as well. We're gonna pop those in, push the connector, we're gonna plug in our screen here, and then we're going to connect our audio jack back up. Alright, now the motherboard is in. Now I'm going to check the front here to make sure that these cameras, there is no dirt or grime that got caught while I was putting it in. They look fantastic, so we can leave that how it is. Okay, now that we have all this stuff in the phone, we just need to place our battery in. Alright, we're not going to plug it in just yet. I'm going to go ahead and take the 3 screws that we took out earlier and screw our motherboard back into the frame. Alright, with all that set, we can now plug in our battery. We're gonna get this insert here. We're gonna pop this in. They've got some plastic like clips or whatever that go in. And so don't be afraid to use a little bit of a force when putting this down. Alright, now that that's in, we can collect all of our screws here and start putting all these back in one by one. Doing the back glass, you can reuse this adhesive, or you can buy new adhesive. It costs like a couple cents. Depending on how bad you mess it up when you take the phone off, you can choose to reuse it or not. Alright, make sure that these inside lenses are clean as well as your cameras are clean before you put your back on. And I'm just going to press that back on, and we're going to go back over this with the heat gun to make sure that we get a good seal between that back glass. Thank you for watching my video on how to replace the screen on a Samsung Galaxy S10 Plus. I hope that you found this video extremely helpful and included everything that you needed to know on how to replace the screen on this phone. Alright, I will see you guys in the next one. Thank you very much.